Hello.
Hi there.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. It's great to be back here with you.
I know I'm excited about our conversation today. I think it's going to be a really good one.
It's going to be amazing. I'm so excited that we're coming off of recently just booking Sara Ross to speak. And so this will be an extra fun conversation. So I'll let you kick it off with
Okay.
introducing her.
It just occurred to me I should probably read her title before I get into the other stuff.
That
Sarah
sounds good.
is the founder and chief vitality officer. I love that title at the leadership research firm BrainAMPED. So we wanted to kick this off by Sarah sent me something yesterday, and it's pretty hot off the press. So I wanted to use her words instead of mine, um, just because they're better. Let's put it that way, more succinct. So I'm going to read two paragraphs to you, and then we're going to get into all our juicy questions and bring Sarah out. We want to lay this foundation of what the lead full way, that's her new thing, is all about. In an AI accelerated world with 73% of organizations expecting major technology driven changes, 61% of leaders are feeling unprepared to navigate the complexity. Another 62% disengaged, and nearly half of the workforce reportedly running on empty. These aren't just statistics, they're warning signs. I think we're all feeling a bit of this. Our current approach is leaving untapped collective potential, depleted talent, and high performance achievable in sprints, not sustainable over time. Sara reveals a better way, the lead full way, a vitality powering approach to fueling the full spectrum of human centered excellence. At its core, it's a simple yet transformative idea. When people learn to intentionally lead themselves and others out of the reactive scarcity state, where most unknowingly operate, we've all been there, to the capacity expanding vitality state, everything changes. Let's bring
Mhm.
Sara out and have her tell us a little more about this.
Let's do it. Oh, Sara,
Hey,
welcome.
Sara.
Hi there.
It's so good to have you here.
Thank you.
So I am dying to hear you talk about this a little further, because the statistics that this kicked off with
Yeah.
are concerning, to say the least.
Yeah.
And it's got me thinking about this whole topic and how it's evolving. I mean, there's no question. It's like a tidal wave coming or something. Help us understand how we get to that vitality state.
Yeah. Well, I think a good place to start is I'm going to step back a touch if I can, and why lead full really does matter, because it's one of these ideas that is a mindset we can live through. It's a mantra that we can use for ourselves. It's a guide post to work towards. And it really came down to this piece of recognizing that my sweet spot is working with leaders. But at the end of the day, what leaders do with the people around them, what they pull out of the people around, like all of that is incredibly important, but it also needs to start with how people lead themselves. So that lead part is not only just how people do that for others, but where people start with themselves. And the second piece of that is, while energy is incredibly important, and harnessed energy directed towards the things that matter deeply to us in a way that allows us to bring our best, that's where we get the vitality. And that is so important. But we have to also recognize that feeling good and feeling at our best is important, but we also need a way to collectively elevate the people around us, to work in a way that ensures we don't lose our foothold on success. Because I think so much is behind those stats. We have been coming off of 5 years. I mean, a pandemic changed so many things, and we're in this place where it's like grower, like at all costs, we must move forward. So this piece of human-centered excellence is, how do we shift that from squeezing the most out of people, which we already know leads us to all the stats that we have right now, to shifting that approach, recognizing the full spectrum of what it means to to bring the best out in people and focus on our capacity to do that for others. So those two pieces are so incredibly important. It's how do we do it in a vitality fueling way that expands the capacity of human-centered excellence so that we get the growth, we get the results, we get the things that we need to do, but not at the cost of everything else that humans bring to the table.
A quick question going off of that, and then I have, of course, many others, but when that's such an interesting point, like this, how do we get sustainable excellence? And you talk about this lasting performance, because it is true. It's like, we feel like we're squeezing ourselves and squeezing our teams for the most. How do you recommend with a lead full way, getting that sustainable excellence from people?
We literally could talk about nothing else. There's so many elements to it, but I think there's a couple of levels that we can go to. I am super passionate to the most nerdy level about why people do what they do. And more so why we do not do the things we know we should in the moments that we know they would have the biggest impact. And what I mean by that is, how often have I have been in those places where it's like, we all know that rest is important. Like that nobody needs to hear that. We all know that rest is important, but why in the moments when we know it would be best to rest, do we override that need? And I think there's, part of that is an issue, is part of the capacity that we have to look at. So one of the challenges is we keep trying to layer on strategies like, just do this, put an end to your day, have these better boundaries. And that's great, provided we're working from a state that allows us to recognize the value of that. And what I mean specifically by that is, let me put it back this way. I'm going to put you, I know you're asking me questions, so I'm going to put you on the spot.
Love it.
Let's say it's one of those situations where lots is on your plate. Have you, and it's the end of the day, you've been working hard days and days on end, pushing and pushing off everything else. And you're like, I know I should shut it down. I know it's the weekend's coming. I should just take one day. I should rest. And you're like, but you get caught in that thinking of like, I'll do that as soon as everything else slows down.
Yeah.
Like when I get all these other things done,
then
I'm going to rest. Have you all been in that situation before?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, because we all do, right? And that's the scarcity state way of thinking about things, where we get caught in thinking like that all the consequences of what might be wrong in that situation. And so the reality is, work doesn't stop. Rest isn't easy. Not like those are the realities of things, but how do we actually take a moment to just pause? Just pause, check in, and ask ourselves, what am working more? What is that actually contributing to? And just that simple of a question, like just what state am I currently in? What am I contributing to? How is this helping me? Sometimes that's enough to allow people to say like, okay, I'm going to send this email. It might have some mistakes. It might come off a little bit edgy. I'm going to spend tomorrow cleaning up and clearing up all the things that I did right now. Perhaps it might make sense just to rest for a moment. But I think there's this opportunity for when we're in that when then thinking to like shift to like, while these things are going on, here's what I'm going to do. And so the other piece is how do we get out of the all or nothing thinking that traps us in that when everything's done, then I'll make a difference, to breaking it down into the smallest little somethings that we can apply right now. Because that is the key to the vitality state. People think they need to overhaul everything that they are doing. We don't. We just need to face the direction that allows us to do things to keep contributing positively to our capacity. So I work with people regularly, and it's like the reality is like, how are you supposed to be innovative when everything keeps changing? Right? Like, how are you supposed to practice self-care when there is always problems that are drawing your attention? Those tensions are not temporary. Like those are absolutely fundamental fixed features of our workplaces today. It will not slow down. So if the world won't slow down, then what are the small things that we can do in those moments to help us be at our very best more skillfully over time? So that's one tiny little thing, like one tiny thing, but it's part of it is just recognizing that we need to pause, break out of the mindset, step out and just say, really, is this way I'm thinking right now helping me bring my best? And is it helping the people around me bring their best? And if the answer isn't yes to both of those, then what's a small action we can do in that moment and then come back to the important work that's calling on us?
That is so beautifully said. And it leads in well to my next question, and that I had the pleasure of getting to see you recently for a keynote we booked you for leaders in a company. And what was incredible is like getting to see, I'm essentially at my company a leader. And so I was just like totally enveloped in your talk. And I got to watch all of these leaders. It was almost like you not only gave them so many tools, you also gave them that pause, that rest with your talk, which was so beautiful because I think it really allowed everyone, it humanized the conversation. I was telling Kris, I think what happens with leaders and companies is like they feel like they have to have this like rigid place in the company. Like they have to be there for their team, be there for their peers, be there for the company. And you just really like normalize that we're all experiencing this. And so the question I wanted to ask you is, you completely captivated that room that I was in. And I wanted to hear more of like what drives your passion for helping leaders revitalize their energy and their impact, because the impact, I really got to see you hit on that for them and they really resonated.
It's always, I know so many people have this beautiful, succinct answer to it. And I honestly can tell you, I don't. When I say I'm obsessed with people, and I mean that. The running joke with my husband is that he thinks that I should ditch the chief vitality officer and I should rename myself a professional eavesdropper people watcher because that's what I spend way more time doing.
I like them both.
And the amount of times he sees me, I notice something and he's like, Sarah, no, don't worry about it. And I'm like, but I think I can help. I think one of the things so there's so many ways I could answer this, but I think genuinely leadership is so hard. Like it is, and it is, but leaders have such an outsized impact on the people around them. And it carries such a heavy weight and responsibility that not everyone always appreciates or understands the ripple effect that they create. But it also is a set of skills, a way of thinking that we don't get taught all the time, right? Like it's not something that we always learn the way we learn all of our other tactical, technical skills. And so I think because leaders do have such an outsized influence, there is a huge responsibility there. But I also, I have one of the best jobs in the world. And I say that because for someone who is obsessed with people, I get to spend literally all my time with people. And getting to be on pre-calls with clients, getting to do research with clients, getting to hear after a talk that I give what people are experiencing. And what has come from that is that I realize that I have met maybe two psychopaths, to be totally honest. But the majority of people that I meet want to do a good job. And are working so hard, which is always my beef around the, work from home when people are like, no one's working. I'm telling you, people are working. They are working. But they are trying so hard. And so if I can give them tools to allow them to do a good job and recognize the ripple effect, but also feel fulfilled in doing that, then that matters. And like, even just the fact that you set it up, leaders are feeling so much pressure and feel like they have to have the answer to everything. They feel guilty when they rest because they know there's people who need them. I call it guilt laxing because it's so prevalent. And so they end up in this place where like they're in these dynamic tensions that feel impossible. They're trying to be everything to everyone all day, every day, all in, giving their very best, which unfortunately starts to work against us. But then you've got leaders, I call it fixer fatigue, like who feel like they have to like, all they do is put fires out and they have to have the solution to everything. And what's amazing is when people start to realize that people don't need you to have the answer to everything.
Yeah.
They just like, I have been able to collect over 10,000 pieces of data, basically on the answer to, when you think of the leaders that you have worked with, how would you describe the people who brought the very best in you out? And not once, and that's formal data, probably like tens of thousands of times from audiences that I've been able to ask that to for the past like 10 years. Not one single time has anyone ever said, the best leaders that I've ever worked with are the leaders who have solved all my problems. Not a single time. They talk about leaders who have their backs. They talk about leaders who they trust. They talk about leaders who tell them where they stand, give clear expectations, help grow them and develop them and listen to them and make sure they feel like they matter and make sure they understand what they are doing and how it matters. So when I can help leaders recognize that people care far more about how you make them feel when they come to you with their questions, when they come to you with their challenges, then that can take a load off their shoulders immediately, like immediately right there. And then it's like, and skillfully, how do you ask questions to empower people, to develop empathy in people, to level people up, to call people forward, to give them the guidelines so that they understand what success actually looks like. Now, there's some skills. But it's this beautiful positive feedback, because when you don't have to have the answer to everything and when you can elevate the people around you, then that gives you the space to step back. And so it's like all these small little places we can create a break in the feedback. And for leaders, I think it's just to recognize it doesn't have to be all you and it doesn't have to be you all alone.
Absolutely. I resonate so deeply with that. And I thought also it was such a amazing touch, the like takeaways you gave everyone with that deliverable. It was mindfully delivered, where they could actually take all of this and go implement that. Another really fun, unexpected piece of your talk was truly how funny you are and how much you balance this. Like, you are entertaining and you're talking about such an important topic. I'm like, how do you balance that? Like, it was hilarious and so many people were laughing at points, but then everyone was really feeling what you were delivering. And it was just like the perfect combo. I want to hear more. Like, how is that just natural? Like, it was really amazing to see.
I do. So thank you. That is the best compliment. I always joke that I have to make sure my husband hears it, because I'm like, hey, people think I'm funny. I would say two things. I have a philosophy that laughter lets learning in. Like, and it is like a core value to me. And I think I work on things, because what I try to do is, I'm not a speaker with this like one big signature story of this, significant big thing I went through. I think I just will say it over and over again. Like, I am so obsessed with human behavior. I'm like, when I leave this earth, I hope that there is a bench sitting in front of the water that people can sit on. And on that bench, it'll say, Sara Ross wants you to spend time in life thinking, I wonder, because I really do fundamentally believe that if people are more curious, there's power in that. And that leads to this piece of, I try to look at the world through those like everyday experiences that we all have, that when we all recognize that we all experience, you can't help but laugh about it. Like there are things about human nature that we all think it's like, we're the only ones who feel that. And when you can lighten that to show the just so humanness of people in the room, that we all go through it. I think that that's what I do well, because that's how I look at the world. It's just in these small increments, because then anything you put into play, they apply to absolutely anybody. Like they don't have to have these, big experiences in order to put really powerful practices or strategies in place. So I will also say that if this is a craft. I mean, I get the opportunity to stand in front of people who have a tremendous amount of weight on their shoulder. And when I get 90 minutes, 60 minutes, 45 minutes on a stage with people, the work isn't stopping for them. So I fundamentally believe I owe it to them to deliver my work in a way that is going to hit every part of their brain possible, to make it as easy as possible for something to resonate, to be applicable, so that when they go back out into their world, and I mean, the complexity of jobs that some people have, mind-boggling to me, mind-boggling to me. So that's my job. That's the profession of what I do, I think, making it applicable to people. And I just am a brain science geek. So I know that the more ways we can deliver material, the better it will stick. And funny things are hard to forget.
I love that. Laughter lets the learning in. That's brilliant.
That's true. Well, I'm wondering, I mean, it's no secret that you're a master at crafting the experiences that you deliver from the stage. But I'm wondering, and I think buyers who might be listening to this wonder too, for organizations considering you as a speaker, what can they expect that goes, beyond the stage, whether it's in the pre-event, or I always talk about the post-event impact too, because I don't think enough speakers consider that.
We could talk about just that. My background in learning development loves the post part. And I just, again, what are the easy ways? So I think I really do believe that there are core pieces of the work that I do that I know that's why people have brought me in. But then my job is to have conversations to understand how to make that resonant with people. And so I really do like those pre-calls. Sometimes I interview other people, those discoveries, digging into organize, like that is, it's actually a non-negotiable for me. I had a client who said, here's everything, don't worry, but we love what you do. And I was like, well, then I promise you, I won't be your right speaker if you don't want to have that pre-conversation. Cause I think that again, my value is making sure the people who are sitting in that audience get to take something away that resonates with them. So out of respect, I think those conversations are really important. I also think there's so much power, because we don't always get to do this in depth and have these, but when I think speakers take the opportunity to do some preliminary work, even if it's like a video to let people know what they can expect and why these things matter to people. I think there's so much power in like greasing people's brains and getting them ready for learning. And I think there's a great opportunity for that for event planners, because people get excited. They have an expectation of something, but it also means that there is like opportunity for a deeper conversation if some of that preliminary like thought process is done. So I think there's so much power there. And then after an event, again, people are going back into a really, really busy world. I think we owe it to them to be able to give them something that's consolidated with all of those key points to them. But I also think that like even though I'm on stage, I think I often have this opportunity to build a relationship with people from the stage. And so in that post-event opportunities to have some kind of like 2 or 3 videos that the organizations or the meeting planners, the events, anybody who's managing the event, that they can kind of trickle out after. I think things like that are incredibly valuable. And the last thing I'll say is, while I appreciate it is not always possible. I also think that there's just this beautiful value when you have somebody who you've brought in to speak, who you are asking them to challenge the audience, to think differently, to apply things. I mean, I just absolutely welcome every opportunity. If there's a break after I speak, to just have that chance to have a conversation with people. When I wrote my book, Dear Work, Something Has to Change, in the acknowledgements, it literally says, like, to all of the audience members and unfortunate people who have sat beside me on planes, your fingerprints, like, are built into the DNA of this book. So it's valuable. I think when people have the opportunity to ask questions and share things, that's so huge. But selfishly, it is also the part of things that makes me feel most alive in what I do, because then I get to hear what is resonating and it makes me better at what I do as well. So right. I hope, does that answer the question?
Yeah, I'm just going to tag on here real quick. I'm really glad you brought up the book, because buyers of speakers out there, this is a person whose book the audience should have after she speaks. I really think that it would be, not just a nice takeaway, but something that really would help them think deeper and take them along that journey a little bit. The other thing, I find it fascinating, and thank you for bringing up the beforehand thing, the video. I just worked with a speaker more on a coaching kind of basis for a couple of years, and she did that. It was important to set up part of her story before she went on, and it was fascinating when they did it versus when they didn't.
Yeah.
And it wasn't necessary. The speech still works, but she came on and it was like she was a rock star.
Yeah.
When they had seen this piece, and they couldn't wait, to hear what was next. And I thought, that is a really good lesson and something we haven't seen a lot of.
I agree. And I'm
it's
just
simple.
Going to say, it
so
can be
simple.
more than just don't forget to register. I think those are wonderful. And I think those introductions are wonderful, but I actually think we can level those up a little bit without adding length, but just getting people to think about something, because, I'm a brain geek. If people are primed to pay attention to their everyday environment and experience, they're going to notice things, so that when they are sitting in that chair, they're not just listening and hopefully laughing or feeling moved to things. They're having all of that, and they are already saying, here's where I'm going to apply.
I agree.
I think that's what we need to do.
Yeah, there's no real cost involved. It's unbelievably simple. You can literally do it on your iPhone, and like you said, attach it to the registration, specific to them. It makes a giant impact. Okay, I'm gonna be quiet, but I think that's a huge hot tip.
I agree.
Thank you.
Yes, as we wrap up and maybe have time for another.
Is there time already?
I know. See, I told you it would go fast.
It really flew. But something that I'm gonna cheat and kind of ask two questions at once. Okay. So take your journey here. But I think so. First, it's do you have any advice for maybe planners or teams that are tasked with creating these conference experiences or these offsites for leaders? And do you have any advice on what can leave lasting impressions on their leaders? Obviously booking you, but advice on that. The other piece is really right now, where we are today, what are the biggest energy drainers you're seeing leaders faced with? So take either or both, but those are the two on my mind as we wrap up.
I wrote it down because that's what my brain does. I have to keep a pen. I'm that person. I can't ever read anything after. Okay, so number one, I'm going to try to hit two. I'm going to hit both of them, I think. But so the first one about how to create environments, I think this is going to sound super biased, so hear me out. I think one of the things we have really started to underestimate people, and I appreciate that this just may not be a really popular opinion. The whole thing of people have no attention span to listen to anything. I don't believe that. I think that people do have a hard time paying attention to things. I agree. Our phones are going off and there's different things, but there is such an abundance of information. It's so overwhelming. Like you can find a list of strategies for anything in the world. Like you don't need people like me. It really is to give a whole list of strategies. Like you can Google it. You can do so many different things. I mean, AI is doing so many different things. But I think I think there's power in getting back to allowing there to be a deepening of a conversation on topics that really matter. I think we are like just thirsty for depth. And I think we need to really, I think that we can give some credit to the audience that they are looking for some depth as well, not just like a list of strategies, but how and why and what's the difference that's going to make. And while that can be done very skillfully in 30 minutes to 40 minutes, I do think that there's power in like giving that space for an entire thought process that allows for the full stories, that allows for some interaction and or reflection, that allows for the application of strategies, like that actually gives that place. I think that is one thing that's really important. But then equally, to be careful that we don't over emphasize or over index on content, because at the end of the day, my work has gotten better because people come up and tell me after about things that they learned, and I will listen to them. And it's like after a breakout, or it's after a break and they've had conversations, and they'll be like, when you said this, and they'll say something back to me that is so elegant and thoughtful and deep. And I'm like, that is beautiful. I did not say that. That is far better than what I said. Like far better than what I said. I'm going to borrow it because it's better than what I said. But we really need to recognize that when you give people the opportunity to talk about things and dig into those.
And there's such a trend of taking it all short. I don't like it either. I feel the same way. It's like everybody's got to talk so fast and get their whole thing out.
And get so
and there's no room to breathe.
And that is, it's just not the way our brain works. It really isn't. So people need to be able to talk about their work. So to be able to like talk about what they heard, apply what they heard. And so then when you've got, 30 minutes, and can we please keep it interactive? And it's just like, no, well, that's just what's your ultimate goal. So I think that just to have a conversation, and I mean, it's also, there's the job of people who professionally stand on a stage and talk about ideas. Your job is to master that craft in a way that it holds the attention of people in there. So you go through, you understand how energy and emotions, the hills and valleys, all of that piece. But I think we just need to go back to recognizing how people learn and remember things. And we have more of an attention span than we recognize, and we're craving depth. So that's my answer to that one. The other one you asked, I wrote down energy drainers. Can you remind me exactly how you asked that question? What are the energy drainers?
Yeah. What are you seeing the most right now? Like that's draining leaders. And I mean, I think we're all feeling it. And so I'm just curious, like, what are you really seeing that you're having to kind of speak on the most, or like help these leaders work through?
Yeah. I think it's a very strange year. I don't think any of us know what tomorrow is bringing. No. Like it does seem that things are totally changing. I think that is really challenging, and we need to build our capacity to be able to sit in uncertainty and communicate that it is uncertain. I think that is one. I think number two, leaders are in this place where the message of like do more with less is back. Like, so we have, how do we do that? And we already know where I said it. We already know where that goes. So
where it goes.
You more effort, like it's not just that more with less. We're now in an environment with such intense complexity. And what intense complexity means is that we're in a place where there are no simple answers, which means that individual expertise will not cut it.
Right.
It won't cut it. And more effort is actually impossible at this point. because there's just, it's what's that, like, you can't, like, there's nothing else to squeeze out from people. Like, it has been given.
Yeah.
So that's where that how do we create environments where people can expand their capacity?
Mhm.
And if you want to be in a place of do more with less, you can't expect people to find more efficient ways to do that when there's absolutely no slack in the system.
Mhm.
And I think that's a really, really hard place. So leaders and individuals, we have to be able to say, okay, individually,
Mhm.
are our actions contributing to the problems that we complain about or the solutions we want to see? And it's not always easy, but I think it is an awareness check for us to see. And the other piece is, and this came from a piece of advice from my dad, from a kind of a funny story. I got thrown out of a basketball game when I was young, and my coach said I was too competitive, and which perhaps I am sometimes. Just for the record, I walk fast. I do all kinds of things like that fast sometimes. Try to be faster than others at some things. But I came home and my dad said to me, don't try to be something that you're not. Like, you are somebody who is passionate and you get involved in things, but did your actions, was that a reflection of your best work? And did it help bring out the best of your team? Because both of those should be yes. And if they are not yes, then that's where adjustments need to be made. And I think we just, as our environments around us seem determined to disconnect us and exhaust us and keep us in this tunnel of trying to each do it individually, we will not be able to be successful alone. So how do we start recognizing how we can help other people thrive, but B, also recognize that this has got to be a collective effort more than we have ever done before, and see that at the end of the day, we are humans. And it's not just, do we rest? It's, do we understand what great rest looks like, so that rest is not this reward that we see. It is a commitment to making sure that we can bring our best in a sustainable way day after day after day, and have those conversations, and recognize that sometimes that's not going to be convenient. And it may not be convenient when somebody else says, hey, I'm done for the weekend. I can't get that. That's going to be inconvenient. But those are conversations that I think are capacity expanding conversations versus creating environments that are just going to keep burning people out.
I love it.
Beautifully said. You are incredible. I feel like every time I get to talk with you, like, I heard you on the pre-event call, got to see you on stage, now getting to talk with you now, it just really, like, it like calms me. Like, I'm just like, okay, like, this makes sense. So thank you so much, personally, and for just the work that you do in a lead full way. It's so amazing to see. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks. I appreciate it. I love the conversation.
Yes. Capacity expanding is now become a part of my vocabulary.
I believe it is the currency of success.
Yeah, it's important. Thank you, Sara.
Thank you.
We'll see you later.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Oh, she's incredible. So
good.
Yes.
So good.
Well,
all right. Well, let's run around and then talk again in a couple minutes.
Perfect. All right.
You did great.